Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Be sure to subscribe to our channel. We publish new videos every day. Don't forget, grab your smartphone and download the Lava Matra app and stay in touch. Guru Maharaj's message is your advantage. The following is a Sri Krishna Chaitanya book compilation given by His Holiness Jaya Pataka Swami Maharaj on October 4th, 2021 in Sri Mayapur, India.
Pangum Langayate Girim Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Om Tat Sat. Continuation of the compilation of Sri Krishna Chaitanya book, chapter entitled Lord Chaitanya refutes the misconception that Krishna has again manifested at Vrindavan, under the section Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's visit to Sri Vrindavan. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.91.
বৃন্দাবনে কৃষ্ণ প্রাকট্যের জনরব। বৃন্দাবনে পুনঃ কৃষ্ণ প্রকট হইল, যাহা তাহা লোক সব কহিতে লাগিল।
Everywhere the Lord went, all the people said, Krishna has again manifested at Vrindavan.
This was an amazing discussion. And Lord Chaitanya wanted to find out what they meant.
So this was an amazing discussion that Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.92.
একদিন বৃন্দাবন হইতে বহু লোকের প্রভু সমীপে আগমন। একদিন অক্রূরেতে লোক প্রাতঃকালে বৃন্দাবন হইতে আইসে করি কোলাহলে।
One morning, many people came to Akrura Tirtha. As they came from Vrindavan, they made a tumultuous sound. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.93.
প্রভু কর্তৃক তাহাদিগের আগমন কারণ জিজ্ঞাসা। প্রভু দেখি করিল লোক চরণবন্দন, প্রভু কহে কাহা হইতে করিলা আগমন।
Upon seeing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the people offered respects at his lotus feet. The Lord then asked them, where are you all coming from? Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.94.
কৃষ্ণ প্রাকট্য জনরব, মূঢ়লোকের বিবর্ত ভ্রম। লোকে কহে কৃষ্ণ প্রকট কালীয় দহের জলে, কালীয় শিরে নিত্য করে ফণিরত্ন জলে।
The people replied, Krishna has again manifested himself on the waters of Kaliya lake. He dances on the hoods of the serpent Kaliya, and the jewels on those hoods are blazing. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.95.
প্রভু দর্শনেই কৃষ্ণ দর্শন, তথাপি প্রভুর কৌতুক হাস্য। সাক্ষাৎ দেখিল লোক নাহিক সংশয়, শুনি হাসি কহে প্রভু সব সত্য হয়।
Everyone has seen Lord Krishna himself. There is no doubt about it. Hearing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to laugh. He then said, everything is correct. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.96.
By the mercy of Saraswati Devi,
By the mercy of Saraswati Devi,
people were seeing Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself.
people were seeing Lord Chaitanya, who is Krishna himself.
They are saying that we are seeing Krishna.
They were saying that we are seeing Krishna.
actually what they're saying was correct,
So actually what they were saying was correct,
but not the way that they thought so.
but not the way that they thought so. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 18.96.
3 দিন যাবৎ সকলের কৃষ্ণ দর্শন লাভ বর্ণন। এই মতো 3 রাত্রি লোকের গমন, সবে আসি কহে কৃষ্ণ পাইলু দর্শন।
For 3 successive nights, people went to Kaliyadaha to see Krishna, and everyone returned saying, "Now we have seen Krishna himself." Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 18.97.
সরস্বতী কর্তৃক ওই বাক্যের সত্যতা স্থাপন। প্রভু আগে কহে লোক শ্রীকৃষ্ণ দেখিল, সরস্বতী এই বাক্যে সত্য কহাইল।
Everyone came before Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and said, "Now we have directly seen Lord Krishna." Thus, by the mercy of the goddess of learning, they were made to speak the truth.
Actually, by seeing Lord Chaitanya,
Actually, by seeing Lord Chaitanya,
they are seeing Krishna himself.
they were seeing Krishna himself.
What they saw in Kaliyadaha was actually not Krishna.
But what they saw at Kaliyadaha was actually not Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 18.98.
প্রভু দর্শনেই লোকের কৃষ্ণ দর্শন সত্য হইলেও প্রকৃতপক্ষে তাহাদের বর্ণন ও উদ্দেশ্য বিবর্তাশ্রিত। মহাপ্রভু দেখি সত্য কৃষ্ণ দর্শন, নিজ গানে সত্য ছাড়ি অসত্যে সত্য ভ্রম।
When the people saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they actually saw Krishna. But because they were following their own imperfect knowledge, they accepted the wrong thing as Krishna.
This is the situation in the age of Kali,
So, this is the situation in the age of Kali,
or for that matter, any age.
for that matter, any age.
Just like the people in the arena of Kamsa
Just like the people in the arena of Kamsa
saw Lord Krishna each in their personal point of view.
they saw Lord Krishna each in their personal point of view.
Similarly, the people see Lord Chaitanya, but they don't realize that he is Krishna.
So, similarly, people see Lord Chaitanya, but they didn't realize that he was Krishna.
Instead, they think that something that's not Krishna is actually Krishna.
And instead, they think that something that is actually not Krishna is Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 18.99.
সরল বুদ্ধি ভট্টের বিবর্ত ভ্রম। ভট্টাচার্য তবে কহে প্রভুর চরণে, আজ্ঞা দেহ যাই করি কৃষ্ণ দর্শনে।
At that time, Balabhadra Bhattacharya placed a request at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said, "Please give me permission to go see Lord Krishna directly." Purport: the puzzled people who visited Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were actually seeing Lord Krishna, but they were mistaken in thinking that Lord Krishna had come to Kaliya lake. They all said that they had seen Krishna directly performing his pastimes on the hoods of the serpent Kaliya, and that the jewels on Kaliya's hoods were blazing brilliantly. Because they were speculating with their imperfect knowledge, they saw Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as an ordinary human being and a boatman's light in the lake as Krishna. One must see things as they are through the mercy of a spiritual master. Otherwise, if one tries to see Krishna directly, he may mistake an ordinary man for Krishna or Krishna for an ordinary man. Everyone has to see Krishna according to the verdict of Vedic literatures presented by the self-realized spiritual master. A sincere person is able to see Krishna through the transparent via medium of Sri Gurudev, the spiritual master. Unless one is enlightened by the knowledge given by the spiritual master, he cannot see things as they are, even though he remains constantly with the spiritual master. This incident at Kaliya Daha is very instructive for those eager to advance in Krishna consciousness.
So, even if Krishna appears, we could mistake him for an ordinary person.
So even if Krishna appears, we could mistake him for an ordinary person.
We need to see Krishna through the eyes of a bona fide spiritual master.
We need to see Krishna through the eyes of a bona fide spiritual master.
Lord Krishna was revealed by His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Lord Krishna was revealed by His divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila
In the
Prabhupada,
pages of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam.
in the pages of Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam.
And so, by following Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, we can understand Krishna as He is.
So by following Srila Prabhupada, we can understand Krishna as He is. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.100.
প্রভু কর্তৃক তাহার ভ্রম নিরসন, তবে তারে কহে প্রভু চাপর মারিয়া, মূর্খের বাক্যে মূর্খ হইলা পণ্ডিত হইয়া।
When Balabhadra Bhattacharya asked to see Krishna at Kaliya Daha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mercifully slapped him, saying, "You are a learned scholar, but you have become a fool, being influenced by the statements of other fools." Purport: Maya is so strong that even a person like Balabhadra Bhattacharya, who was constantly staying with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was influenced by the words of the fools. He wanted to see Krishna directly by going to Kaliya Daha. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being the original spiritual master, would not allow his servant to fall into such foolishness. He therefore chastised him, slapping him thus to bring him to a real sense of Krishna consciousness.
So, just as in flying, one has to learn how to fly by the instruments. Even if we cannot see going through clouds, the instrument tell us what we're doing.
So just as one has to learn flying with the instruments, and while flying through the clouds, one cannot see but has to use the instruments.
We cannot depend on our senses, but we have to depend on the instruments.
We cannot depend on our senses, but we have to depend on the instruments.
Similarly, to understand Krishna, we have to hear from the bona fide spiritual master.
Similarly, to learn about Krishna, we have to depend on the bona fide spiritual master.
Not our senses or the statements of foolish people.
Not our senses or the statements of foolish people. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.101.
স্বয়ং কৃষ্ণ হইয়াও ভট্টকে আত্মগোপন, অথচ সরল বুদ্ধি ভট্টকে বিবর্ত কবল হইতে উদ্ধার। কৃষ্ণ কেনে দর্শন দিবেন কলিকালে, নিজ ভ্রমে মূর্খ লোক করে কোলাহলে।
Why would Krishna appear in the age of Kali? Foolish people who are mistaken are simply causing agitation and making a tumult. Purport: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's first statement, Krishna kene darshana dive kali kale, refers to the scriptures. According to scripture, Krishna appears in Dwapara Yuga, but he never appears as himself in Kali Yuga. Rather, he appears in Kali Yuga in a covered form. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32, Krishna appears in the age of Kali in the garb of a devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who always associates with his internal soldiers, Sri Advaita Prabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, Shivas Prabhu, and Gadadhara Prabhu. Although Balabhadra Bhattacharya was personally serving Lord Krishna in his role as a devotee, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he mistook Lord Krishna for an ordinary man, and an ordinary man for Lord Krishna, because he did not follow the rules set down by Shastra and Guru.
Lord Krishna's name is Triyuga.
Lord Krishna's name is Triyuga.
He only appears as the Supreme Person of Godhead in the three yugas.
He only appears as the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the three yugas,
Satya, Treta, and Dwapara.
Satya, Treta, and Dwapara.
In Kali Yuga, appears as a Chanda avatar or disguised incarnation.
In Kali Yuga, he appears as a Channa avatar or a disguised incarnation.
He doesn't proclaim himself as God.
He doesn't proclaim himself as God.
So, why would Krishna show himself as Krishna in Kali Yuga?
So why would Krishna show himself as Krishna in Kali Yuga? Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.102.
মায়ামুগ্ধ চিতে চিদ বুদ্ধি বা চিদ আরোপকারী মূর্খ, বিবর্তবাদী বাউল, বাতুল না হইও ঘরে রহত বসিয়া, কৃষ্ণ দর্শন করিহ রাত্রি কালে যাইয়া.
Do not become mad. Simply sit down here and tomorrow night you will go see Krishna.
Lord Chaitanya is guiding his disciple.
Lord Chaitanya is guiding his disciple.
He will reveal the misconceptions of the foolish people.
He will reveal the misconceptions of the foolish people. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.103.
প্রাতে সমাগত শিষ্ট লোককে কৃষ্ণ দর্শন কথা জিজ্ঞাসা, প্রাতঃ কালে ভব্যলোক প্রভু স্থানে আইলা, কৃষ্ণ দেখি আইলা প্রভু তাহারে পুছিলা.
The next morning, some respectable gentlemen came to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the Lord asked them, "Have you seen Krishna?" Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.104.
সেই লোকের প্রকৃত তথ্য বর্ণন, লোকে কহে রাত্রে কৈবর্ত নৌকাতে চড়িয়া, কালিয় দহে মৎস্য মারে দেউটি জ্বালিয়া.
These respectable gentlemen replied, "At night in Kalia lake, a fisherman lights a torch in his boat and catches many fish."
So, the gentleman revealed the actual secret
So these gentlemen revealed the actual secret
of people, foolish people, saying that they had seen Krishna.
of people, foolish people, saying that they had seen Krishna.
The fisherman light was shining and moving around as he rocked the boat.
The fisherman's light was shining and moving around as he rocked the boat,
And they thought that was the heads of the Kaliya serpent.
and they thought that that was the heads of the Kaliya serpent.
And the shadow of the fisherman they thought was Krishna dancing on the heads of Kaliya.
And the shadow of the fisherman was thought to be Krishna dancing on the hoods of the Kaliya, on the heads of the Kaliya. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.105.
দূর হইতে তাহা দেখি লোকের হয় ভ্রম, কালিয়ার শরীরে কৃষ্ণ করিছে নর্তন।
From a distance, people mistakenly think that they are seeing Krishna dancing on the body of the Kaliya serpent. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.106.
মূঢ় লোকের বিবর্ত বুদ্ধি, নৌকাতে কালিয়া জ্ঞান, দ্বীপে রত্ন জ্ঞানে, জালিয়ারে মূঢ় লোক কৃষ্ণ করি মানে।
These fools think that the boat is the Kaliya serpent and the torchlight the jewels on his hoods. People also mistake the fisherman for Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.107.
পক্ষান্তরে জনরবের ও লোকের কৃষ্ণ দর্শন ক্রিয়াও সত্যতা। বৃন্দাবনে কৃষ্ণ আইলা সেহ সত্য হয়, কৃষ্ণের দেখিল লোক ইহা মিথ্যা নয়।
Actually, Lord Krishna has returned to Vrindavan. That is the truth. And it is also true that people have seen him.
Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya,
Krishna came as Lord Chaitanya,
and people have seen him.
and people have seen him.
That is true.
That is true. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.108.
কিন্তু প্রকৃতপক্ষে প্রতীত বৈষম্যেই বিবৃত ভ্রমোদয়। কিন্তু কাহ কৃষ্ণ দেখে, কাহ ভ্রম মানে, স্থানু পুরুষে জইছে বিপরীত জ্ঞানে।
But where they are seeing Krishna is their mistake. It's like considering a dried tree to be a person. Purport. The word sthanu means a dried tree without leaves. From a distance, one may mistake such a tree for a person. This is called sthanu purusha. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was living in Vrindavan, the inhabitants considered him as an ordinary human being, and they mistook the fisherman to be Krishna. Every human being is prone to make such mistakes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was mistaken for an ordinary sannyasi. The fisherman was mistaken for Krishna, and the torchlight was mistaken for bright jewels on Kaliya's hoods.
Human beings are subject to make mistakes, imperfect senses, to cheat others, and
Human beings are subject to committing mistakes, imperfect senses,
the illusion.
and be illusioned.
So, therefore, we have to see through the eyes of the scripture and the spiritual nature.
Therefore, we have to see through the eyes of the scriptures and the spiritual master. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.109.
প্রভুর কৃষ্ণ দর্শন প্রাপ্তি সংবাদ জিজ্ঞাসা, প্রভু দর্শনে লব্ধ সুকৃতি লোকে নারায়ণ বুদ্ধি। প্রভু কয়ে কাহা পাইলা কৃষ্ণ দর্শন, লোক কহে সন্ন্যাসী তুমি জঙ্গম নারায়ণ।
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then asked them, "Where have you seen Krishna directly?" The people replied, "You are a sannyasi, a renunciant. Therefore, you are a moving Narayana, Jangama Narayana." Purport. This is the viewpoint of Mayavad philosophy. Mayavad philosophy supports the impersonalist view that Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, has no form. One can imagine impersonal Brahman in any form as Vishnu, Lord Shiva, Vivaswan, Ganesha, or Devi Durga. According to the Mayavad philosophy, when one becomes a sannyasi, he is to be considered a moving Narayana. Mayavad philosophy holds that the real Narayana does not move because, being impersonal, he has no legs. Thus, according to the Mayavad philosophy, whoever becomes a sannyasi declares himself Narayana. foolish people accept such ordinary human beings as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is called Vivartavad. In this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that Jangama Narayana means that the impersonal Brahman takes a shape and moves here and there in the form of a Mayavadi sannyasi. The Mayavad philosophy confirms this. Danda grahana matrena naro narayana bhavet. Simply by accepting the danda of the order of sannyas, one is immediately transformed into Narayana. Therefore, Mayavadi sannyasis address one another by saying Om Namo Narayana. In this way, one Narayana worships another Narayana. Actually, an ordinary human being cannot become Narayana. As the chief Mayavadi sannyasi, Sri Shankaracharya says, Narayano paro vyaktat. Narayana is not a creation of this material world. Narayana is above the material creation. Due to their poor fund of knowledge, Mayavadi sannyasis think that Narayana, the absolute truth, takes birth as a human being, and that when he realizes this, he becomes Narayana again. They never considered why Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, would accept an inferior position as a human being and then again become Narayana when he is perfect. Why should Narayana be imperfect? Why should he appear as a human being? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very nicely explained these points while at Vrindavan.
This idea that a Mayavadi sannyasi is Narayana
This idea that a Mayavadi sannyasi is Narayana
gave great distress to Madhavendra Puri.
gave great distress to Madhavendra Puri.
And he did not like to travel by the public road because if he met a sannyasi, he'd be addressed as Narayana.
That is why he avoided to travel by the public roads, because if one meets a sannyasi, he will address him as Narayana.
The Tridandi sannyas accepts himself as a servant of Krishna.
The Tridandi sannyas accepts oneself as a servant of Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.110.
বৃন্দাবনে হইলা তুমি কৃষ্ণ অবতার তোমা দেখি সর্বলোক হইলা নিস্তার।
The people then said, You have appeared in Vrindavan as an incarnation of Krishna. Just by seeing you, everyone is now liberated.
I think what they're saying is correct.
Actually, what they are saying is correct.
Actually, Lord Chaitanya was Krishna himself.
Actually, Lord Chaitanya was Krishna himself.
But they had the wrong idea that every sannyasi is a moving Narayana.
But actually, they have a wrong idea that every sannyasi is moving Narayana. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 18.111.
প্রভুর লোক শিক্ষা জীব কৃষ্ণ নহে সুতরাং জীবে কৃষ্ণ বুদ্ধি নিষিদ্ধ। প্রভু কয়ে বিষ্ণু বিষ্ণু ইহা না কহিবা জীবাধমে কৃষ্ণ জ্ঞান কভু না করিবা।
Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately exclaimed, Vishnu, Vishnu, do not call me the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A jiva cannot become Krishna at any time. Do not even say such a thing. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately stated that a living being, however exalted he may be, should never be compared to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's preaching protests the monistic philosophy of the Mayavad school. The central point of Krishna consciousness is that the jiva, the living entity, can never be accepted as Krishna or Vishnu. This viewpoint is elaborated in the following verses.
Jiva, or living entity, can never become Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The jiva or a living entity can never become the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Supreme Person is always supreme. The living entity is always living entity.
The Supreme Person is always supreme, and the living entity is a living entity. Then Satamrita Madhyalila 18.112.
জীবে ও কৃষ্ণ ভেদ বর্ণন সন্ন্যাসী চিৎকণ জীব কিরণ কণ সম ষড় ঐশ্বর্যপূর্ণ কৃষ্ণ হয় সূর্যপম.
A sannyasi in the renounced order is certainly part and parcel of the complete whole. Just as a shining molecular particle of sunshine is part and parcel of the sun itself. Krishna is like the sun, full of six opulences. But the living entity is only a fragment of the complete whole.
Lord Chaitanya, he took the part of a raw devotee.
Lord Chaitanya, he took the part of a
He
devotee.
was teaching by his example how a devotee should act and think.
He was teaching by his example how a devotee should act and think.
So, this way, he taught how a devotee should always see himself as a part of the whole.
So, in this way, he taught how a devotee should always see himself as a part of the whole,
Not as the whole.
not as the whole. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhyalila 18.113.
জীব ঈশ্বর তত্ত্ব কভু নহে সম জলগ্নি রাশি জইছে স্ফুলিঙ্গের কণ.
A living entity and the absolute personality of Godhead are never to be considered equal, just as a fragmental spark can never be considered the original flame. Purport: Mayavadi sannyasis consider themselves Brahman, and they superficially speak of themselves as Narayana. The monastic disciples of the Mayavad school, known as Smartha Brahmanas, are generally householder Brahmanas who accept the Mayavadi sannyasis as Narayana incarnate. Therefore, they offer their obeisances to them. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately protested this unauthorized system, specifically mentioning that a sannyasi is nothing but a fragmental portion of the Supreme, Chit Kana Jiva. In other words, he is nothing more than an ordinary living being. He is never Narayana, just as a molecular portion of sunshine is never the sun itself. The living entity is nothing but a fragmental part of the absolute truth. Therefore, at no stage of perfection can a living entity become the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This Mayavada viewpoint is always condemned by the Vaishnava school. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself protested this philosophy. When the Mayavadis accept sannyas and consider themselves Narayana, they become so puffed up that they do not even enter the temple of Narayana to offer respects, for they falsely think themselves Narayana himself. Although Mayavadi sannyasis may offer respects to other sannyasis and address them as Narayana, they do not go to a Narayan temple and offer respects. These Mayavadi sannyasis are always condemned and are described as demons. The Vedas clearly state that living entities are subordinate part and parcels of the Supreme. Eko Bahanavyo Vidadhati Kaman. Supreme being Krishna maintains all living entities.
Lord Chaitanya said that the Mayavadis are Krishna offenders.
Lord Chaitanya said that the Mayavadis are Krishna's offenders,
Since they think that they become Krishna.
since they think they have become Krishna.
And this should be this compromise should be very strictly avoided.
So this compromise should be very strictly avoided. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.114.
কৃষ্ণ ঈশ্বর জীব তদীয় বর্ষ ভগবৎ সন্দর্ভে ধৃত সর্বজ্ঞ সূত্র বাক্য বা ভাগবতমের 1-7-6 শ্লোকের টিকায় শ্রীধর স্বামীর উদ্ধৃত শ্রী বিষ্ণু স্বামী বাক্য আহ্লাদিন্নাং সংবিদালিশিষ্ট সচিদানন্দ ঈশ্বর সবিদ্যা সংবৃত জীব সংক্লেশানিকরা কর।
The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller, is always full of transcendental bliss and is accompanied by the potencies known as Ladini and Samvit. The conditioned soul, however, is always covered by ignorance and embarrassed by the threefold miseries of life. Thus, he is a treasure house of all kinds of tribulations. Purport. This quotation of Vishnu Swami is cited in Sridhar Swami's Bhavartha Dipika, commented on Srimad Bhagavatam 1.7.6.
The house of the threefold miseries.
The house of the threefold miseries.
They are suffering threefold miseries in various ways.
They are suffering threefold miseries in various ways.
Why the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always transcendental to these miseries of material life.
But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always transcendental to these miseries of material life.
Mayavadi sannyasi told me that his growing old was his pastime.
One Mayavadi sannyasi told me that now he is in the goal of his pastime.
I told him that everyone goes through that pastime.
I told him that everyone goes to that pastime.
Disease, old age, death, and birth.
Disease, old age, death and birth.
Lord, he never grows old, he never dies.
But the Supreme Lord, he never grows old or dies.
He appears, but is not born like an ordinary person.
He appears, but he is not born like an ordinary person.
And he never dies.
And he never dies. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.115.
জীব নারায়ণে সমজ্ঞানী পাষণ্ডতা যেই মূঢ় কহে জীব ঈশ্বর হয় সম সেই পাষণ্ডী হয় দণ্ডে তার যম।
A foolish person who says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the same as the living entity is an atheist, and he becomes subject to punishment by the superintendent of death, Yamaraj. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that the word Pashandi refers to one who considers the living entity under the control of the illusory energy to be equal with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material qualities. Another kind of Pashandi is one who does not believe in the spirit soul, the superior potency of the Lord, and therefore does not distinguish between spirit and matter. While describing one of the offenses against chanting the holy names, specifically the offense called Shruti Shastra Nindana, blaspheming the Vedic literature, Jiva Goswami states in his Bhakti Sandarbha, Yata Pashanda Margena Tattatreyarsava Devo Pashaka Nam Pashandinam. Worshippers of impersonalists like Dattatreya are also Pashandis. Concerning the offense of Aham Mama Buddhi or Dehatma Buddhi, considering the body to be the self, Jiva Goswami states, those who are overly absorbed in the conception of the body and the bodily necessities are also called Pashandis. Elsewhere in the Bhakti Sandarbha it is stated, A Pashandi is one who considers the demigods and the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be one. Therefore, a Pashandi worships any kind of demigod as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who disobeys the orders of the spiritual master is also considered a Pashandi. The word Pashandi has been described in many places in Srimad Bhagavatam, including 4.2.28, 30 and 32, 5.6.9 and 12.2.13 and 3.43. On the whole, a Pashandi is a non-devotee who does not accept the Vedic conclusions. In the Hari Bhakti Vilasa, there is a verse quoted from the Padma Purana describing the Pashandi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this verse as the following text. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 18.116.
শাস্ত্র প্রমাণ বৈষ্ণবতন্ত্র বাক্য পদোত্তর খণ্ডে 23-12 হরিভক্তি বিলাস 1.73 যস্ত নারায়ণং দেবং ব্রহ্ম রুদ্রাদি দৈবতৈ সমতানৈব ভিক্ষিত সপাষণ্ডী ভবে ধ্রুবম.
A person who considers demigods like Brahma and Shiva to be on an equal level with Narayana, he is to be considered an offender or Pashandi.
Lord Chaitanya has described various offenses.
Lord Chaitanya has described various offenses.
One does these things, he is considered a Pashandi, an offender, or an atheist.
One who does these things is considered a Pashandi, an offender, or an atheist. Thus ends the chapter entitled Lord Chaitanya refutes the misconception that Krishna is again manifested at Vrindavana. Under the chapter entitled Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's visit to Sri Vrindavan.
Do you like our ad-free videos? Be sure to subscribe to our channel. We publish new videos every day, and don't forget to like and share our channel.